Hi and welcome to my channel. Whether you are just starting out in web development or looking to gain more hands-on experience, you are in the right place. In this video, we will tackle a beginner-friendly project where you will learn how to structure an HTML page, design a stunning mobile-first layout, and use JavaScript to make it interactive. Let's level up your skills and create something awesome together. We are going to build a very simple project called Professional Skills Dashboard. And look at the cool effect when I reload the page. As you can see the progress bar, we are going to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build this project. So let's get right into it. Let's have a folder called Dynamic Skill Bar. And I'm going to open it using my preferred code editor, and that is Visual Studio Code. I'm going to have one file called index.html and then styles.css and script.js. Let's begin with the HTML. Press Shift and 1 or exclamation mark to have this skeleton. Let me explain these lines of code. The first one is a doc type equal to HTML. This is a document type declaration. It's going to tell the browser this is an HTML5 document and it must be the very first line of the HTML file. The next one is called HTML language is equal to English. And this is a root element of the HTML document. And then language equal to English specify that the document is in English. And then we have the head tag. And this one is a container for any metadata about the document. This is not visible on the page itself. And we have meta with a character set which is equal to UTF-8. And this one specifies the character encoding for the document. UTF-8 includes almost all characters from all human languages. And the next one is meta with a name and then the content attribute. The main purpose for width, which is equal to device-width. This one sets viewport weight to device's screen width. And then initial scale is equal to 1.0. This one sets initial zoom level when a page is loaded. So what is viewport? The viewport is a visible area of a web page that user can see in their browser window at any given time. So let's begin with the actual structure. I'm going to change the title to Dynamic Skill Bar or Dashboard. If you look at the final one, we have the icon and also a custom font. To do that, we are going to use Font Awesome. So let's search for Font Awesome CDN, which is this one. What we want is the one that ends with or.main.css and click on this icon. Copy that. Back here, it must be placed in the head tag. So up here, or even below here, I'm going to say Font Awesome. And I'm going to paste that. The next is going to be Google Font. So let me search for Google Font. Or better still, you can go to fonts.google.com. Let me remove my previous ones and then browse font. What I want is called Poppins, but you can use any of these fonts. Let me search for Poppins, which is this one, and click on Get Font. And then click on the Get Embedded Code. And we can use it on the web, Android or iOS. But what we want is a web, so click on that. Back to Visual Studio Code, I'm going to have a comment as font. And then paste that. And let's see the usage. All what we need is to select the element and then use font family equal to Poppins. And that is it. So now let's look at the structure. Let me close this guys and let's begin with the HTML. I'm going to have a comment as main container for the skill bars. For this one, we are going to use Emmet syntax a lot to make our life easier for adding classes or IDs. And this is how it goes. In case you want to add a class to a div, then use dot, and then the name of the class as container. And it has been added to that. But apart from div, and let's say you want to add a class to h1, then first you type the tag name and then use dot and add the class name, for example title, and indeed it has been added. So this is what we are going to use often. So inside the container, we are going to have the header. If you look at the final one, this is what I'm referring to. I'm going to have h1 and then p tag. So I'm going to wrap it in a div. I'm going to say that dot header. And then in the header, we're going to have h1 and it says that professional skills dashboard. And then we're going to have a paragraph with a class called subtitle. So p.subtitle. And it says that a comprehensive overview of technical expertise. So let's preview this one. So right click and click on open with live server. In case you don't have this, then make sure to install an extension called live server, which is this one. I have already installed and I can now right click and then live preview. Alright, so let's continue. Let me collapse the header, and the next part is going to be the skills section with multiple skills bar. And the comment goes like this. And this div is going to wrap all the skills. So in this case, it's going to be something like this. So I'm going to have a div with a class called skills-section. And then in between, we're going to have the individual skill. I'm going to have a comment as individual skill bar container. I'm going to have a div with a class called skill-container. And then we're going to have the icon and then the title. So I'm going to have it inside a div with a class called skill header. And let's use the first icon, and that is HTML. To know the icon names, let's visit Font Awesome, the official website, which is this one. Or you can go to fontawesome.com and then click on the icons and then select the free one. And in here, we can use any icon of our choice and we can perform a search. Let me search for HTML, and this is the icon, and that is HTML5. What you want, click on that, click on the HTML, and click on the code to copy. So back here, I'm going to paste, and let's see the preview, and we have the icon here, but we can customize it by changing the color or the font size. Then the next step is going to be the title of the skill, and this is going to be h3 with a class which is equal to skill title, and this is HTML5. And after that, we're going to have the description. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to place it in a p tag with a class equal to skill description, and then paste it. And lastly is the progress bar, which is this one. We're going to wrap it, and that is after the p tag. We're going to wrap it in a div by having a class which is equal to skill bar. And then we're going to have one inner div with a class which is equal to skill progress. And this is where the magic begins, and that is how to implement the progress bar. As you can see for this one, they have different length. So how are we going to do this one? This is where data attribute comes in. So in the div here, we are going to pass in what is called data and then dash. And then I'm going to add %. And this is what we call data attribute. And this is a syntax. Always it must begin with data dash and then any custom name. So what is data attribute? This one is used to store custom data within HTML element. And this value can be accessed in JavaScript. So in a simple term, we are passing a value from HTML Then we can access it in the JavaScript to update. Then the value, I'm going to use 90. And then provide a span. And the span, I'm going to add a class called %. And I'll show you how we are going to access this one in JavaScript. I'm going to provide 90%. Now let's have a look. And this is what we have. Now we are going to repeat ourselves for the rest of these skills. So it begins here, collapse it, and then copy, and then paste. The difference here is going to be the name of the skill. This is CSS3, and we can search for the icon name as CSS3. The description is responsive design animations. Paste that. And then the value for this is 80% or 85. Then change this one to 85. I'm going to copy again, paste, not this one, but instead this one, paste it. The next one, I think I have to change the icon name for the CSS, which is FAB and then space. Let me remove the HTML. FA-CSS3-alt. Let's see the icon. And we have it. I think I'm using it at the wrong place. It's supposed to be this one. Yeah, so copy this icon name. It is the second one, which is this. And the next one is going to be JavaScript. And the icon is equal to, let me check, FAB-FA-JS. And then the description, replace with that. All right, I'm going to copy this one for React. Copy the description. Remove this. This one is React.js. And then the icon is FA React. Well, for JavaScript, I forgot the percentage. Change this one to 84 or even 80. And then React 75. And the next one is equal to Node.js. Copy, paste, Node.js, server-side JavaScript, and the icon is FA Node-js. I think we have messed up with the structure. Let's begin from here, and that is the first one, which is this one, and that is the HTML5. If I collapse the skill header, it's supposed to end here, so select that, and then I'm going to cut the closing tag here, and then bring it after the H3, which is this. All right, so now we have the header that wraps the icon and then the title. Similar to this one, click on the header, cut the closing tag, and after the H3, paste it. Sorry, on my side, cut it after the H3 for the rest of the scales. Like that, cut it, paste, select, cut it, and then paste. All right, so let's have a look. And now this is what I want. And we are going to control the layout using CSS. The last one is the SQL. So I'm going to copy this, paste, change this one to SQL, and then the description as that. And it is called FA database. And the percentage for this is 65. All right, we are done with the HTML. Let's continue with the CSS. So to begin, unless we link our custom CSS, below here, I'm going to say custom CSS. And then let's link it up as styles.css. First step is that we need to reset the browser default. And I'm going to use what is called universal selector by saying that margin is equal to 0, padding is equal to 0, and then box sizing is equal to border box, and font family, this is where we're going to use our custom fonts as Poppins, and then comma sans serif. So let me explain this syntax here. Like I said, that this is what we call universal selector. And this one targets all elements on the page and apply these rules to every HTML element, including divs, spans, paragraphs, headings, and etc. And we have margin and padding equal to 0. Let me explain box sizing, which is equal to border box. This one changes how element dimensions are calculated. Default is content box, and that is width over height, which is equal to content only. So when you use border box, it includes padding and border in width and height calculations. With this one, if I save it, let's see, now the default style has been removed and the font has been applied. To make sure that it has been applied, right click and then click on inspect and then network. And if I reload, as you can see that we have the font being loaded from Google. So we are good to go. Note that we are going to use mobile first responsive design. This means that we are going to target mobile devices first. So in here, I'm going to have a comment as mobile first base styles. And it's equal to the body. And then provide a minimum height, which is equal to 100 VH, and that is viewport height. And I'm going to use display equal to flex. And then justify content, center, align items, also center, and background. I'm going to use hashtag F8, F9, FA. And then provide padding on all sizes as 20 pixels. And then overflow on the x-axis is equal to heading. The main purpose of overflow equal to heading is that it's going to control what happens with content that overflows an element's boundaries horizontally, and that is the x-axis. And this is how it works. Any content that extends beyond the element width is clipped, prevent horizontal scrolling. And this one is very useful for preventing unwanted site scrolling on mobile. And let's select the container, which is this one. So dot container, provide a width of 100%, background as white, and then padding on all sizes as 15 pixels, and border radius as BR for shortcut is equal to 12 pixels. And then box shadow, I'm gonna provide 0, 15 pixels, 30 pixels. The color is RGBA, and red is 0, green 0, blue 0, and then the alpha channel are 0.08. Let me explain this syntax, and that is 0, 15, and 30. The 0 here is horizontal offset, and that is how far the shadow extends horizontally, and positive values move right, negative values move left. And then for the 15 physics, it is the vertical offset. And that is how far the shadow extends vertically. The 30 here is the blur radius. And that is how blurry or soft the shadow appears. Larger values create softer shadows. So with this one, if I save it and we have the border radius and then the box shadow. If I increase to, let's say, 10 or decrease to 10, as you can see, we have the sharp shadow. The higher the value, the more softer. And the next one is, let's select the header. Note that we are still in the mobile first approach. So let's center everything as text align center and margin bottom of 30 pixels and padding 0 and 15 pixels. And that is top and bottom is 0 and left and right is 15 pixels. And after that, let's select the H1. Let's see the preview, and it has been centered. So let's select the H1. I'm going to give it a color as hashtag 2D3436. And then margin bottom, I'm going to use 12 pixels and font size of 1.5 M and font weight 700, line height 1.3. And let's style the subtitle, which is this one. Select that. Dot subtitle. Color is equal to hashtag 636E72. And then font size of 0.9 M and line height of 1.5. So let's begin with the skills section. Let me collapse this. We are done with the container. Let me collapse the header. We are on the skills section. So I'm going to have a comment, skills layout, and that is mobile base. And I'm going to select that as skills section, this one instead. And use display equal to flex, and then flex wrap as wrap, and then gap, and that is a space. I'm going to use 20 pixels. Then top and bottom 0, left and right 10 pixels. And the next one is the skill container. And provide a width of 100%. Background is equal to hashtag 6Fs. And then padding on all sizes as 15 pixels. Border radius of 12 pixels. Box shadow as we did 0, 5 pixels, 15 pixels. And RGBA. And let's have a transition, use transform, and use the duration as 0.3 seconds. The type is comma, box shadow. We want to add transition to these properties. Also use 0.3 seconds, space, and then ease. And then margin bottom of 15 pixels. Let's look at the preview, and this is what we have. The next part is let's add some hover state. So scale container colon, and then on hover we want to move the card to the top. If you look at the final one, as you can see, that cool effect. This is because of the hover state. So in here we are going to transform and then use translate on the y-axis. It should move up -5 pixels. And when you hover also, you want to change the box shadow by using 0, 8 pixels, and then 20 pixels. And then the color is RGBA. Change the opacity to 0.1. And let's have a look. And here we go. I want to have a pointing cursor. So on hover, I'm going to say cursor pointer. And this is what we have. Nice. The next one is going to be the scale header, which is this one. Copy the class name and then dot scale header display equal to flex, and then align items center, and then margin bottom of 8 pixels. And then let's style the icon, and that is the I tag. So you're gonna select the dot scale header and then space I for the icon, font size of 1.2 em, margin right of 8 pixels, and minimum weight of 20 pixels. All right, and you can increase the font size to 2, and this is what we have. I think for the SQL, the icon name doesn't exist. Let me confirm, which is this one. FAB is supposed to be FAS, and then FA database. All right. I think this one is cool, right? So let's maintain that font size. And then the scale title, which is this one. I'm gonna select that. Color is equal to hashtag 2D3436. And font size of 1.1 em, and font weight of 600. And then the scale description, the color is equal to 636E72. And then font size of 0.85 em, and margin bottom of 12 pixels. And then line height of 1.4. Let's have a look. All right, this one looks nice. The next step is going to be the scale bar, which is this one. So back here, select that, and then provide a width of 100%, and then height of 12 pixels. Background is equal to hashtag F0F0F0. And then border radius of 5 pixels. Overflow on all sizes is hidden. And then position is equal to relative. The purpose for the relative here is that we are going to position other elements relative to the scale bar. So if you look at the final one, this is what we have. We are going to position the progress bar with the percentage sign. But the percentage here is the scale bar here, or the progress. So we are going to position other elements relative to that. In this case, the percentage. That is why we are adding position equal to relative. And then the next step is going to be the scale progress, because we want to position this percentage sign here in line with the progress bar. So let's get into it. The next step is going to be the scale progress, and then provide a width of 0%, and then provide a height of 100%. And then background color, let's use background because we're going to use some linear gradient here. So bring linear gradient. We're going to pass in 3 things. One is the angle. It should start from 90 degrees, comma, and then 2 colors. If I say red and yellow, but let's use these hex colors. The first color is equal to hashtag 0984E3. And the second color is equal to 00CEC9. And you're going to see the effect when you get to JavaScript. And then provide border radius of 5 pixels, and position relative, and transition. Let's add some animation on the width, which is equal to width and then 1.5 seconds, and the type is cubic, and then pass in 0.4, 0, 0.2, and 1. So let me explain this syntax. The width here is a property being animated, and then 1.5 seconds is the duration of the animation, and cubic Bezier is the timing function. Let's also target the percent. So back here, dot percent, and then position, use absolute, and then right of 0. And now the value is no more, and we are going to use JavaScript to update the progress bar. And then at the top, I'm going to use -20 pixels, and let me use a color as hashtag 2D3436, and then font weight 600 and font size of 0.85 em. And let's change the icon colors. We have the first one as the HTML5. Let's look at the class name, which is FA-HTML5. So that, I'm going to use a color which is equal to, is supposed to be dot. Hashtag E3-4F26. And then copy and paste. The next one, or the next icon, is FA-CSS3-alt, and the color is equal to 2965F1. The next one is the JavaScript as FA-JS, and the color is equal to F7DF1E. And copy and paste. For the React, the color is 61DAFB. And Node.js, the color is 339933. And lastly is the FA database, and the color is 336791. And let's have a look. Nice. The next part is we're going to add some animation, and it goes like this. We're going to animate the progress. So if you look at the HTML, it is called scale progress. So back here, we're going to select that and add dot animate. And I'll explain why I'm adding the dot animate. And it goes like this: animation, and then I'm going to use fill bar, and then space 1.5 seconds. I'm going to use cubic and pass in 0.4, 0, 0.2. Let me explain this syntax. The scale-progress.animate. This is going to target elements with both classes, and that is scale progress and animate. Here we are using a condition called AND. This means unless we have both classes on the HTML. By the moment we only have a class called scale progress. So how can we add the .animate? And this is where JavaScript comes in. We are going to add this class using JavaScript. This means the animation is going to be triggered after JavaScript has added this class. And we have what is called the fill bar. The fill bar here is the name of the animation that we are going to define in the keyframes rules. And we will get there very soon. So let's add what is called forwards. The main purpose for the forwards here is animation state is retained after completion. So this is very important. Without it, the element would return to its initial state. With this one, the element stays at the final keyframe state. And let's add our custom animation using the keyframe, use at, and then keyframes. and then the name of our animation as fill bar. And it goes like this. From, I'm gonna specify that the width is 0%, and then to, I'm gonna specify the width, which is equal to, the value for the width is equal to var and then dash dash %. Now let me explain this syntax. This is using what is called CSS custom properties, and that is CSS variable that is typically set dynamically through JavaScript. When we get to JavaScript, you'll be able to know how we are setting this property. Let's say that the percentage is 90%. This is going to be updated here. And we're going to use what is called set property to set the property using JavaScript. Now I can say that we are done with the design. What has left is a responsiveness. At this point, as you can see that on mobile, it looks nice, as you can see. So what about on larger screens, for example, desktop or TVs? This is where media query comes in. When using mobile first, this means we are starting from the smallest devices to medium, large, and largest. So now we are going to include responsive breakpoint for tablet. Below here, I'm going to add a comment at small tablet, and that is 480 pixels and up. We are going to add media and screen, and then include end and use minimum width 480 pixels. Then we are going to include the following as container padding of 25 pixels, and then h1 font size of 2M dot subtitle font size of 1M, and then dot scale container padding of 25 pixels. And let's target tablet, and that is 768 and above. It follows the same format. I'm going to copy this and change the breakpoint to 768, and then for this one I'm going to target the body. And for the body, we're going to give it a padding of 30 pixels, and then dot container, remove the h1, also this container, provide a width of 90%, maximum weight 1000 pixels, and padding of 35 pixels. And also dot header, provide margin bottom of 40 pixels, and then h1 font size of 2.2M, margin bottom of 15 pixels, and then dot subtitle, font size of 1.05M, maximum weight of 600, and then margin, you want to center, therefore top and bottom 0, left and right is auto. And next is scale section, is supposed to be scale, padding of 0, and then gap, that is a spacing of 25 pixels, and then dot scale container, provide a width which is equal to calculate, and then 50% minus 12.5 pixels. This is how we calculate a width dynamically using the calc function in CSS. And for the icon, also scale space I, and then font size, which is equal to 1.4M, and then dot scale title, which is this, font size of 1.15M, dot scale description, provide font size of 0.9M. And lastly, on larger desktop, and that is 1024 and up, I'm going to use add media screen, minimum dash width is 1024 pixels. Select the body and use padding of 40 pixels and dot container padding of 40 pixels. And lastly, we're gonna add the scale container. We're going to calculate the width, which is equal to calc function, then pass in 33.333% minus 20 pixels. And that is it. Now it is responsive. As you can see, what has left is the JavaScript. We are going to integrate JavaScript into this. And the main purpose for the JavaScript is to update the progress bar and also to implement the cool animation. So back to our code, we have empty JavaScript, and then I'm going to load below here, and that is below all the HTML. I'm going to say that custom JavaScript, use script, and then src script.js. So first step is that you want to make sure all the HTML content are loaded before using JavaScript to interact with the element. This is where DOMContentLoaded Event comes in. So here, I'm going to add a comment as wait for the DOM to be fully loaded. And it goes like this: document dot add event listener, and the event type is called DOMContentLoaded. And then I'm going to use arrow function as the callback function. So in here, you're going to get all the scale progress. And to do that, you're going to use what is called query selector all. So here as const scale bars is equal to document dot query selector all, and then I'm going to pass in the class. Note that you're going to have a lot of scale progress for each of the scale. If you look inside the individual scale, we have the scale progress. Scale progress is also here, likewise that. This is where this selector called query selector all, it is going to use to select all these elements with a class equal to scale progress. We are going to have a function to check if an element is in viewport. One more time, a viewport is a visible area of a web page that the user can see in their browser window at any given time. And the function goes like this: const is in viewport. And this function is going to take in the element. We are going to use a method on the element which is called getBoundingClientRect. And it goes like this: rect is equal to the element dot getBoundingClientRect, and then we're going to return on the rect we have top is more than or equal to 0, and rect dot left is more than or equal to 0, and rect dot bottom is less than or equal to, then bring parentheses here. We have a global method called window. On that we have what is called inner height, or document dot document element dot client height. This is just a method from JavaScript to determine the viewport height of an element at any given point. Then after that, bring end operator, and then rect dot right if it is less than or equal to parentheses window dot inner width, or document dot document element dot client width. And the main purpose for the getBoundingClientRect is that it is a method That's going to retain information about the size and position of an element relative to the viewport. So now that we have this function, we are going to have one more function, and that function is going to animate scroll bars or the progress bar. Let me add a comment, and the function goes like animate scroll bars. And then we're gonna take the scroll bars, and that is the element that we have selected. Let me show you here, which is the scroll bars. It's supposed to be equal to that. On that, we're gonna use forEach. Note that it's going to return what is called node list. Let me show to you. If I log the scroll bars, let's check it out in the browser console, and we have it as what? Node list, which is like an array. Therefore, we can use forEach on it. So dot forEach. I have it already. Then pass in a callback function. We have access to the individual scroll bar, and then we're gonna make a condition that if the function that we have created, which is called is in viewport, and note that this function requires us to pass in the element, and that is the individual scroll progress, which is this one. We're gonna pass in as a function and then pass in the scroll bar, and then curly braces here. At this point, we're gonna get the percentage from the data attribute. Note that in the HTML we have specified these values, 80 here and then 75. We want to access these values in the JavaScript so that we can animate or update. This is where a method called getAttribute comes in. I'm gonna say that get the percentage from the data attribute. So how to get it done? We're gonna use the scroll bar. The scroll bar here represents the individual div here, and that is this one. And what we want is this value. To get this value, we're gonna use a method called getAttribute, and then we're gonna pass in the attribute name. In this case, it is called data %. So pass in here as that. And I'm gonna assign the result to a variable as %, which is equal to that. The next step is we're going to set the custom property for CSS animation. I'm gonna add a comment as that, and it goes like scroll bar dot style. We are going to add some properties to this element as style dot set property, and then we're gonna pass in quote dash dash %, and then comma. You're gonna inject the value backtick, and then $, curly braces, and pass in the %. And then let me include the percentage as well. And this is where you're gonna add the animation class. Note that in the CSS we added what is called scroll progress.animate. This is where we are adding the class from the JavaScript. And it goes like this: scroll bar dot class list dot add. Then we're gonna add the animate. And after that, we're gonna set the wait directly after a small delay. This is where set timeout comes in. Then pass in a callback function, and then the duration that we want to trigger this, and that is 1 second, which is 1000 milliseconds. Then pass in the scroll bar dot style dot width is equal to the percentage as $, curly braces, %, and include the sign. And lastly, we have to call this function, and that is animate bars. And now let's try out. Let me remove this, and then when I reload, as you can see, the cool effect. Alright guys, so here ends this project.